Hey everybody, welcome to another edition of Shooting the Shit with Yankee. As always, I'm Yankee, so let's start shooting. Today's topic isn't really gun related, but it is a very big topic in the gun community right now. And it's this whole notion that a lot of people are calling for people to be fired from their jobs or ostracized or attacked on the internet because they say something negative about Charlie Kirk. And I want to know what you all think of that. Do you think that is cancel culture? Do you think it's just consequences for doing something in poor taste? Do you think it's a violation of people's First Amendment rights? What do you think? Let me know. Is it right or is it wrong? I will start us off, as I usually do, by speaking my mind and then reading what everyone else said. And if you want to weigh in, remember, you can weigh in via the YouTube super chat. YouTube does steal the money. We don't end up getting it most of the time, but it's the only way we can do it because of the way they got things set up. So feel free to weigh in if you feel like you should. But I'll start us off here and say, it depends to me. First off, do I think an employer has a right to fire something for something they say on the internet? Yes, if that person is representing you, then yes, you have every right to fire them. I'm a firm believer of that. You're not discriminating against them because of their sex or their nationality or their religion or their sexuality or their age. You're holding them accountable for something that they did that you considered to be in poor taste. And you decided you don't want that person representing your business. I've had to do that in the past. So I firmly believe in an employer's right to do that. Now, as far as people calling for them to get fired or calling for them to be ostracized, well, yeah, that is kind of cancel culture. But is it warranted or unwarranted? If people are celebrating someone dying, if they're celebrating an assassination, well, that's really poor taste. And I can't condemn anybody for going after them for that, especially employers who fire them. If they're saying something that poor taste, like I'm glad he's dead or all that other stuff, or he deserved it, well, then, yeah, fire him. I have no problem with that whatsoever. Like I said, if they're representing your business, you fire them wherever you want. But as far as other people calling for them to be fired, etc., if they say something reprehensible, I'm fine with that. Sometimes cancel culture is warranted. It's called consequences of your actions. Sometimes you get told we don't want you to be part of our thing anymore because of the nasty things you say or do. And that's just part of life. So I'm okay with that. However, if they're just like saying, hey, Charlie Kirk was a controversial person who said this, that I don't think is so warranted. I don't know if I'd go after anybody for that because everybody's entitled to their own opinion. And he is definitely a controversial person. I didn't agree with his position that the church should have a leading role in government. I didn't agree with his ideas that religion should be taught in schools because the only one religion taught in schools. So I can't support that. I agreed with some of his other positions. Didn't think he was the savior of the Second Amendment or anything. He was a guy out there making money, doing a bit, basically. So his bit was he wanted to promote his Christian ideas. He was a Christian nationalist by his own words, and he wanted to get out there and spread that message, which I think is kind of what Christians are supposed to do, to be honest. But I didn't see him as some sort of savior. But if you're going to be someone who says something that heinous about somebody, well, then, yeah, I don't see a problem with you being held accountable for your actions. However, here's the big but. Sometimes I've got a big but. Usually. Here's the thing. If you're someone who did the same thing when someone else died, like when that congressperson got shot with her husband and her dog, if you were cheering about that, well, then shut up. You don't have a leg to stand on. You're a hypocrite. If you're someone who screams every time someone posts something that could be construed as white supremacist or something and they get fired and you scream about the company and they should get their job back, well, then shut up. You don't have a leg to stand on. You're a hypocrite. But if you're just a normal everyday person who either liked Charlie Kirk or didn't like Charlie Kirk, but you're offended by what someone says because it's heinous, well, then I have no problem with that whatsoever. And I think wishing someone dead or dancing on someone's grave who's newly dead is kind of heinous. So that's how I feel about it. Like I said, just don't be a hypocrite, though. And yes, it is cancel culture, but sometimes cancel culture is part of society. It's part of consequences. It's just another word for consequences. And as far as employers go, like I said, I support their right 100%. As long as they're not violating the law by discriminating against something else. Opinions are something you can discriminate against. So that's what I think. Let's see what everybody else thinks over here. Jay Sagachode, to the people getting fired for celebrating murder, you 100% have the right to say anything. That's the freedom of free speech. It's not the right to freedom from consequences. True. And I think people should be able to fire people just because I don't want you representing my company. You're hurting my business because of something you went out and did. Something you said that you didn't need to say. So I'm fine with that. Sean Bain says you have freedom of speech. You are not free from the actions it causes. That's consequences, basically. Yeah, you're not free from the consequences of your action. That's not what free speech is. Free speech doesn't mean I can't hold you accountable for what you say, or I can't call you out for what you say, or your employer can't call you out for what you say. It means the government can't stop you from saying it, especially when you're addressing the government or a grievance with the government. That's what the First Amendment is. It doesn't give you the right to just say whatever you want and hide behind the Constitution. Johnny Mandrick, I think it's wrong. Not like companies listen to consumers on anything else. And I thought the right was against cancel culture. You would think, well, there a lot of people on the right, especially on the internet. And remember, when we're talking about people here, we're generally talking about people on the internet. They're just a bunch of hypocrites. Just like the left's a bunch of hypocrites. You know, they're the people that are on the internet, because that's generally the worst of every group. And yeah, so I don't think anyone is surprised by the hypocrisy of calling for someone to be canceled after, right after you called for the same, you chastise and condemn the same actions against one of your people, or you're one of the same people that was cheering for the other side's getting harmed. So, like, if you're out there screaming about, well, it's time for us to start fighting back, we need to start shooting leftists, well, then you don't got a leg to stand on about how you're outraged about the Charlie Kirk thing, because it seems like you're okay with violence. That was John and Mandrick. And hypocrisy is one of my least favorite things. I try to not be a hypocrite. It's not always easy, but Asir Hammer says free speech is not free of consequences. Private sector, no one cares about others' opinions. Keep them to yourself. Well, I mean, a lot of people make their money about sharing their opinions. Charlie Kirk made his money by sharing his opinions. So, I mean, there is a market for sharing your opinions, but you have to accept the consequences. Now, the consequences shouldn't include being murdered. That's not fair. That's not just. But you do accept the consequences of your actions. I don't think you should be fired, but you aren't protected from being fired. Well, like I said, whether I would agree with them being fired would depend on what they said. If they just said, I was not a fan of Charlie Kirk, I didn't agree with this position, like I do, well, then I don't know if they should be fired for that. But if they're out there dancing on his grave or posting memes making fun of him dying, like I saw one the other day about his wife, a meme about his wife, where it was Roger, dressed as a woman crying like, ooh, with a bullhorn going, I'm sad, don't pay attention to me, leave me alone, like that. And I'm like, well, that's poor taste. And it's not funny. If it had been funny, I might be able to give a little bit of leeway, but it wasn't even funny. Raymond D1776 says consequences. That's all he said. He kept it short and sweet. Edgar Cortez says, like it or not, what we say matters, especially at work. So I think it depends on what was said, whether the comments were hateful or celebrating a death, whether it was done at work, etc. Yeah, it's same thing. And even if it's done outside of work, if someone just shows themselves to be a heinous person, like I believe I have every right to fire. Like if I'm at work and I see video of one of my employees on their off hours, and someone's taking video of them at the park and they're dragging their dog by the neck on a leash, and then when he won't walk, they kick him. Well, they're fired. They're fired hard. So sometimes it doesn't have to be at work. Or if like someone is like we used to have a uniform at one of my bars. They had to dress a certain way, had our logo on it. If I saw a video of them online with that on their shirt, talking shit that I didn't agree with, they were fired. I actually had that happen. I'm like, you can't be doing that in our company logo. So we don't support your position. And you made it look like we do. Incitement isn't protected. Destiny. That was Con Man. Con Man said incitement isn't protected. Yeah, you're not allowed to. You can't just go up to someone and just berate them and threaten them and just be horrible to them. And then if they smack you in the face, you say, that was my right, but via free speech to be saying those things to them. They had no right to retaliate. No, it's not protected. They don't get to murder you over something you say if you don't put your hands on them. I think we all agree to that. Jay Sagachode said half the states are right to work. You can be fired for nothing or something. You can also walk away. In a lot of states, yeah. In some states, it's not the case, but in some it is. And even in those states, though, you have to show that you didn't discriminate against them on sex, color, all these things. So if you decide I just fired him because he's black, and then my customers didn't like me having a black employee, so I fired him, you're going to get sued and you're going to lose. You can't take that position. Edgar Cortez chimed in again, says, truthfully, I believe it is impolite to disparage the dead. I realize many folks do it, but as a physician, I detest it. I'm fine with people saying what someone really said. Like if you're like, I don't want conspiracy theories or hateful comments or anything like that. But if like tomorrow, if Joe Biden died, I don't think it would be unfair for some people to say, condolences to Joe Biden and his family. However, I didn't care for Joe Biden as president. His policies hurt a lot of people, whatever, blah, blah, blah. A lot of people died because of their anti-gun rhetoric. You can say stuff like that because how you die doesn't change how you lived. When you die, people have a right to still hold you accountable for what you say, but there should be a decorum there. You know what I mean? Just don't do it like in a mean way. Or like at their funeral. There's a place and a time. Flash in the Pan said nothing. He just added $2. And then he did it and said something this time. And he said, speaking bad about Mr. Kirk is both a right and bad taste. I don't know if it's bad taste if you're just talking about his policies. Because if you disagree with his policies, you have every right. If you think he was a disgusting person, you have every right. But you also can be fired for it if someone else disagrees with you. Like when Hitler died, I don't think people were required to be nice to him or speak well of him. So, there are exceptions, I'm going to say. But generally, there's a rule of decorum. And it also says kind of person you are. If you are thrilled someone got brutally murdered in front of their family, well, then that says something about you. You can take issue with his policies and even what he did for a living and even who he was. But if you're glad he got shot and murdered in front of his children, then that says more about you. Mr. Furley, woke L weaponized the HR department tables have turned. Excuse me. I don't know if I understand that fully, but woke L weaponized the HR department tables have turned. I don't think woke liberals ever weaponized HR departments. If you ever worked for a big corporation, HR departments do one thing. They protect the company. They don't do the work of any employee or any political ideology other than what would support the company and its profits. A lot of people make the mistake thinking HR is on their side. The employees, we have an HR department. They're there for me. No, they're there for the company to make sure the company's not liable for anything it does to you. David Ford says, "Oh, poor Charlie," and then he's crying. See, that's not. I don't know if he means that legitimately. Well, no, then it's laughing and crying. See, now that would be poor taste, I think. Johnny Mander, I'm not going to censor what you say. You're not representing me, but I could see where if I was your employer, I could want to censor it. But you're not representing me. Everybody's free to come in here and talk. We got one last person weighing in here. Then we're done with the shooting the shit. And it's Johnny Mandrick. And he said, "Be interesting to see how the right would react to Hillary getting assassinated." Well, I guarantee you it'd be just as bad as how the left is reacting to Charlie Kirk. Because there's just as many disgusting people on the right and the left. In fact, I think there might be more so on the right because they don't have that fear of being canceled hanging over their head as bad as the left. The left might watch their tongue a little more because they're afraid, some people who actually believe in being decent will cancel me on the left. But that was Johnny Mandrick. And we got one last person weighing in here. It says, Flash in the Pan says, I'm disgusted Charlie Kirk was shot. Speaking bad of the dead is horrible. See, I don't agree that speaking bad of the dead is horrible. Because there's a lot of dead people that I'm glad they're dead. Like back in the day, if a black man killed a Ku Klux Klan member as he was trying to burn his house down, I'm not going to pretend like I'm sad that guy's dead. Or when Hitler died, I'm not going to pretend I was sad Hitler died. So you can speak ill of the dead sometimes, but it's like I said, it's very circumstantial. But let's move on here because that's it for us today. I want to thank everybody for coming. How about you out there in YouTube land? What do you think? Do you think this is just the right being hypocrites, or do you think this is consequences to people's poor judgment and bad taste? Let me know in the comment section below. And do you think employers have a right to fire them? Let me know. You know what I think. You know what a lot of people in the chat here think. Let's hear what you think. And if you want to weigh in on one of these topics in person, come to our live chat. We do them every day at 6 p.m. We don't miss one, even when I'm sick as balls like I am right now. I still come in here. We do this. So that's me patting myself on the back a little bit. It's not like I had anything else to do. I could lay on the floor and be sick, or I could come out here and be sick. That's what I always say. At least here I'm trying to distract myself. But thanks, everybody, for coming. Thanks for everybody who did participate. I appreciate it. Hope to see everybody again tomorrow. Until then, remember, always carry and stay safe till I see you again.